Well, good morning from Sydney. Wednesday morning, and here I am, back from my trip. And today I have a little blog post up, a few observations that I made while I was over in the good old US of A, travelling. For you who don't know, hello Pip, nice to see you. Good to see you, my friend. For those of you who don't know, I've just had a very big birthday, and David took me on a bit of an adventure for my birthday, and it was bloody fabulous. It really was. It was a super, super special trip, and a marvellous time was had, especially by me. Hello, Tinnika! Nice to see you. And I got to say, I'm feeling extremely loved up and very spoiled at the moment. And, it was quite a big trip. We started in New York. We had almost 2 weeks in New York. And it's no problem, Tinnika. It's just lovely to see your face. 2 weeks in New York. Then we headed to Washington, D.C. Then we drove all the way up to Martha's Vineyard through all the beautiful fall colours. Then across to Boston. First time in Boston. And then David and I left my parents there, and we went back to New York for a night to celebrate our anniversary, and then over to the Napa Valley for a few nights on the West Coast before heading back to Sydney. Hello, lovely Anna. Good to see you, my friend. And along the way, I connected with some of you guys, some of my AIP tribe, and it was such a joy to actually meet some of you, some of the people that I have been friends with online for nearly 6 years now. Hannah, it was super. I was very spoiled, I've got to tell you. And I don't know about you, I used to travel quite a lot. But for a variety of reasons, it's been a while for me. And so this trip was a real reminder of just why travel is so much fun, why I love it so much. And so I'm hopeful that this is just the starting point of connecting with people within the bloody fabulous AIP community that we have. And so I made a few observations in today's little blog post. Nothing too deep because, I'm still jet lagged, but things that this little Australasian AIPer never quite realised until I got on a plane and went long haul over to the US. And I got to say, I started with this AIP caper. I don't know, let me know if you can understand this. This AIP caper, this way of life that we live, it makes travelling easier. I sort of say in the blog post that in my head, I have a clear line in my life. I have before AIP and I have after AIP. I genuinely do this in my head. And when I think about dates in my lifetime, I think, was that before AIP or was that after AIP? And before AIP, I had no idea what would happen with my HS symptoms, my particular flavour of chronic illness, from one day to the next. So I didn't know if I would experience a flare, which caused me such acute pain that I couldn't really walk comfortably. And given that we've just had a holiday where we were averaging about 14 Ks a day, that's pretty big, right? So that was before AIP. I was fatigued all the time. I thought that was my normal. I thought that's what life was. And before AIP, it didn't occur to me that my diet might have had some impact on my quality of life, if you like. So before AIP, travel was really a bit of a lottery. And, can you guys identify with that? Is that something that you can relate to? After AIP, I can go 4 weeks on a US trip and not flare at all. I had one little niggle day where I could feel something going on, and that day I had a really early night. I really upped my leafy greens. Not always the easiest thing in the US, but and it went away. So I had 4 weeks of flare-free while I was traveling. That's pretty profound and completely different to what life was like before AIP. I'm far more aware now of my body, what I can and can't tolerate. I know what my limits are, and I set boundaries, right? I'm much more conscious of setting boundaries in terms of my diet, in terms of my downtime, in terms of my peopling, because there was a lot of people. There were a lot of people on this trip. So, setting limits, setting boundaries has become a priority. And that helps me to stay on track, and it helps me to prevent the flaring. So living an AIP way of life has given me a framework, both in terms of my diet and lifestyle, but also these choices have helped me with how I navigate international travel. So that was the first observation. And it was, look, I just can't, don't you love it when somebody calls you in the middle of a video? I can't articulate enough how this AIP framework helps me to make decisions that really serve me, even when life throws curveballs. So that was the first observation. The second one was that it's kind of good to get outside your comfort zone. It really is. I've been living this AIP way of life for 6 years here in Sydney. And I didn't really recognise what a bubble my little world is. Or just how lucky I am that I have this amazing partner who embraces my weird and wonderful lifestyle so completely. And that support is so key to my success. And I know that there are people on the call who already who agree with that. But I guess it's a bit more nuanced than that. While I make a point of really fine-tuning and tweaking my personal protocol, as a matter of course, it's my way of life now, given my geography, my perspective has always been very down under in nature. That sounds a bit rude. It's very Australasian in nature. And you kind of would imagine that AIPing in Australia and New Zealand would be very similar to AIPing in the Northern Hemisphere, right? But I've learned that that's not always the case. And when it comes to a lot of these things in life, so often it's the really little things that trip you up. So when you travel to another country, even one that is as relatively similar as the US is to Australia, you're kind of forced to step outside your comfort zone. And this is especially true when you're on a healing protocol, like even my very personalized now AIP way of life. So you can't help but look at the world a little bit differently when you are looking at it through the lens of another country. Your perspective changes, you become more aware of how others live because you are experiencing their lifestyle firsthand. And this is particularly important for me because I'm working with AIPers from around the globe. And, AIP in the US is very different to AIP in Australia and New Zealand. I guess the third thing, and maybe I should have put this first, we have a really, really special community in AIP land. And this really was brought home to roost for me when I had the opportunity to meet up with some of my mentorship crew in New York. We had Mentorship Monday in New York. And it was just so bloody fabulous. I'm so ridiculously grateful for all the positive changes that following an AIP way of life has brought with it for me. But the most unexpected, the most wonderfully warm and fuzzy-inducing bonus has been the incredible people that I have met along the way, both online and now in real life. And when I sort of started down this rabbit hole 6 years ago, when I first did this sort of I'll suck it and see experiment with AIP, I had no idea the sheer number of incredible women, and let's face it, it's mainly women. There's the odd dude, but it's mainly women that I would meet. I've lost my place. That's why I'm hesitating. And I'm really proud. I'm happy, but I'm proud to call these incredible people my tribe. Hello, Dee. How are you? Dee, V? Jet lag, girlfriend. It's so good to see you. How are you? You've got weddings going on, woman. It's all going on for you. So a big shout out to all these incredible women. And if you haven't found your tribe yet, if you haven't connected with a bunch of people within this health protocol sort of world that you really connect with, go looking for them, because they're out there, and it is so worth it. It is so worth it. Hello, lovely Donna. How are you out there on the road? Good to see you. So yeah. Three sort of, what would I say, kind of internal observations. And then we get to the American shizzle. The American shizzle. So, I mean, I know that I've got a couple of Americans here. What is with all the potatoes? Seriously, girls? I mean, I'm not being facetious. I'm actually quite serious. Fries, home fries, potatoes, with everything. Now, I'm not the trans fat police, not by some stretch, but I got to say that all of these nightshades cooked in whatever, they were a bit of a surprise for me, especially at breakfast. Very easy for me here in Australia to say no to toast, but all of these home fries, which just sort of come, and so many of them. The portion sizes are enormous. Oh my goodness. So, you know, I'm pretty lucky. My AIP way of life has evolved, to the point that really my hard and fast, I will not cross this line rule is gluten-free. So I will not knowingly ever consume gluten. When I'm at home, I obviously have a very nutrient-dense focus, but when I'm on the road, I can relax the reins a little bit. But all of these potatoes just blew my little mind. And breakfast. What's with potatoes at breakfast? I don't know. It was interesting, V, because when I was in the Napa Valley, a couple of people I spoke to said, it's a real East Coast thing. Hello, lovely Michaela. Good to see you. So yeah, the potato thing. And then there's this, what I call the different strokes for different folks sort of list. And I just have a few sort of foodie oriented musings that really sort of struck me. So my observations. Good coffee, right? If you've been following me at all, you know I'm very serious about my coffee. And good coffee means different things to different people. The disappointment of a poorly made coffee was sadly a semi-regular occurrence while I was away. And I was in the habit of ordering an Americano, which for me was an espresso with some hot water, because I like it, I want a good hit of caffeine when I'm having a coffee. But the quality of that was just, it was, yeah. Can somebody please educate me on what an Americano should be? Because I just, 4 weeks in the US and I'm still wondering. So the coffee was a real issue. The second thing was, where's the salt? People? Our little travelling group, good to see you, Pip. Our little travelling group. So I had my mum and dad with me, because dad is turning 80 in November, so he came for a bit of the trip. So there was the four of us. And our little travelling group was forever salting our food. Not because it wasn't salted enough, but rather there didn't seem to be any salt. Any salt. So is this a thing in the US? Is this something that I was unaware of? And I travel with my my Olsen's travel salt. I should have some here, but I don't. I put a link in my blog post to it. And so there are little sort of metal boxes with different salts that you can take with you. Thank goodness for those, because I didn't think that I was a particular salt fiend until I went away and noticed that salt wasn't a big deal. Aha, thank you, Miss V. So I'm not imagining things. I don't know. So the salt thing was a big one for me. The next one was, why must the plate always be full to the brim? Like, full to the brim. No white space ever on a plate. And, I'm a gluten-free, AIP-esque kind of girl, so I don't want potatoes, I don't want home fries, I don't want toast. So I was sort of in the habit of ordering an omelette for breakfast. I'm okay with dairy. We don't eat a lot of dairy here at our place because my partner, David, he's not very good with dairy. There's a lot of dairy with breakfast in the US, but I'm okay with that. So I got into the habit of ordering an omelette as my first meal of the day. And that way I could sort of play around with what went into the omelette, leafy greens and, good things that were going to keep me going for the day. But waitstaff really struggled with having empty space on my plate with no potatoes, no home fries, no toast. So, they would force things like fruit salad on me. What is with the empty space? The fear of the empty space on the plate. Yeah. So we've got coffee, salt, and empty space. Oh, I've only got half your comment, V. Oh. Yeah, okay. So when you come and visit me in Australia, we'll do a comparison, V, about, I do think it is, I haven't put this in the blog post, I think it is easier to AIP in Australia than it is in the US. And look, arguably, I was traveling in areas of the US that were, it should be reasonably informed, I would have thought. We were in big urban centres. We were in New York and Washington, D.C. and Boston. That was interesting. It was interesting. So we had the salt, we had the coffee, we had the full plate. And interestingly, I found that serving staff took my gluten-free status very seriously. And, to be honest, girls, if anybody asks me if I'm celiac, I lie and I say yes, because I want the kitchen to take me seriously about gluten-free. And I didn't want a flare. So while I found that people took that very seriously, I didn't find that there was a particularly thorough understanding of which foods contain gluten. And in one particular instance, we went to a very high-end restaurant for the 130th birthday in New York, and I was served a dish with barley. No joke. I was served a dish with barley as a gluten-free alternative to the other course that the rest of the table were having. And when I questioned the server, he tried to tell me that barley didn't actually contain gluten. So, you do have to be vigilant. And I know for a fact that gluten is a real trigger for me. So, you do have to watch yourself. And this was arguably the most high-end restaurant that we went to while we were traveling. So that was an interesting little observation. Yeah, that's interesting. Everything except for finer is cooked in vegetable oil. Yeah. Look, and Michaela, I decided I wasn't going to get too stressed about that because I think to some extent I can actually work myself up into a flare by getting stressed about things over which I have no control. So, what I didn't know about didn't hurt me. That was kind of the way that I was going. But I do hear you on the vegetable oil. And I just finally want to talk about the fact that I took a digital detox for 2 weeks. So the first half of the trip, I was still online and I was doing some sharing. Did a little Friday morning chicken from Central Park, which was fun. But then in the second 2 weeks, I decided that I was going to just stay offline completely. And this was a really big deal for me because I haven't done that since I started my coaching business. So I literally removed Facebook from my phone so that I wasn't tempted. So no Instagram, no Facebook, I was offline. And it was hard. The first few days was actually quite difficult. There was a real sense of FOMO, fear of missing out, particularly with my membership group, who were all fully briefed and very supportive. So thanks to my membership crew about me taking 2 weeks offline. But then I kind of got into the swing of things. Hey, Juzzy, down in New Zealand, good to see you, sweetie. I got into the swing of things, and I really felt so much more present in terms of experiencing what we were doing, in terms of our travels. And I was very much more present with the people I was traveling with. To the extent that I actually could feel it. I felt that cortisol spike when I put my Facebook back onto my smartphone when I returned home. So there is a real sense that taking time out from social media just helps you to sort of just calm down. And, that's got to be good for you, right? So people who go on and on and on about their travels are really boring. So I just wanted to share one blog post about my fabulous trip because it really was so awesome. And I met so many wonderful, wonderful AIPers along the way. I am so grateful to each and every one of you for coming to meet this little Kiwi who lives in Australia because it just was so bloody fabulous. And what it has done is it's given me a real incentive to do more of this, to get out and meet more of you because shizzle, I can't swear because I'm on the internet, shizzle, we have a fabulous community. I mean, really, we're such bloody fabulous women, and don't let anybody tell you that you're not special because you are, and I just think you're wonderful. So thank you for checking in with me today. Check out the blog post because it's all documented, all my little observations about traveling in the US, and a bit excited because I've been working on something behind the scenes which is going to be going live in the next week or two. Bit of a change over at the website. Big change, really. And looking forward to having that go live at some stage over the next week or two. So big love to you all. Hello, Jennifer. Nice to see you. Big love to you all. So happy to be back. And thank you to those of you who checked in with me for my little impromptu live chicken this morning. Over and out from me. Bye.